What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It is Tuesday, February 15th, and we've got some Super Bowl talk to follow up on the aftermath of the Super Bowl. Of course, we recapped it in glorious fashion with John Breech live from the stadium and Ryan Wilson and myself from our homes. But you got to do a deeper dive into the Super Bowl. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching for the first time and like the show, toss us a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on alerts. We go live when like crazy stuff happens. Emergency podcast. We actually were the first to ever do the emergency podcast. Often imitated, never duplicated. And if a quarterback gets traded or somebody retires, emergency podcast time, baby. Also, if you'd like the show, give us a 5-star rating on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. They are much appreciated. Joining me to do a deep dive into the Rams' victory over the Bengals, Ryan Wilson and John Breech. What's up, fellas? And more importantly, Breech, is the thing happening where, immediately after the Super Bowl, sort of like, that's so crazy. I can't believe that game was nuts. And now you're like, everything's sort of settling in and you're angry and sad and all that stuff.
You know what? I had a 4-hour plane ride to get over all of my feelings. Not only did I have a 4-hour plane ride, I had a 4-hour plane ride where I sat directly behind Jalen Ramsey's family. They were decked out in Rams gear. Maybe his nieces, I'm not sure, but they had these amazing Rams colored braids. And so that is what I was sitting behind the whole time. So I had a 4-hour reminder of this loss.
Did you ask him my question that I asked you to ask them?
I did not, because the Rams won, and I did not want to make enemies with Jalen Ramsey's family. So I decided to keep the question to myself.
The question that I told Breech he should ask was, did Jalen get over his third-degree burns from getting toasted by T and Jamar? But to Breech's point, that Bengals lost and the Rams won, so that would have probably been a short
And they probably would have been like, would Jamar do the rest of the game? Or Jalen Ramsey had a pretty good game, except for two notable exceptions.
You would have gotten roasted in front of an entire airplane full of people.
I would have been laughed off the plane. I'd still be in California.
They would be like, we are actually taking an emergency landing in Phoenix to toss this clown out of here. CBS Sports senior NFL blogger tossed off airplane after emergency landing after being punked by Jalen Ramsey's family is definitely like a viable headline.
He was actually telling people on the plane that he was the host and the one and only on the Pick Six podcast, so that would have made it blown back on you a little bit.
Are you seriously, Breech? Wilson and I remarked after you left. And in fact, people in the YouTube comments remarked this too. They're like, why is it Breech more sad? The Bengals just lost the Super Bowl.
Incredibly upbeat.
It was, upbeat. I had plenty of time because I didn't meet with you guys till 20 minutes and getting a smile and walking. You're high-fiving Bengals fans out of the stadium. Just everybody was.
We made it.
Everybody's excited about the run. Like, all right, like we feel like we got something for the future here.
Right. That was definitely the vibe I got walking out of the stadium from most Bengals fans. And, the more, Brinson, I was slacking you at like 3 a.m. saying, I'm watching this play again. I need to know if you're on and we'll talk about that some in the podcast. And you do, you kind of go over these certain plays in your head that could have gone either way, or maybe that the officials got wrong. And, not that I'm going to blame this game on the officials, but, we'll talk about that also. So it was more of the end of the game was anger at the officials for how the Rams got a touchdown. So that took all the sadness out. Then the Bengals got the ball back with 90 seconds and a chance to score. So the fact that they didn't win, you can't blame it on anyone, because no matter what happened, they had a chance and they didn't come through. So that took the anger away from officiating or whatever else, and just said, you know what? This team lost by 3 points. They had the ball in their star quarterback's hands at the end, and that's all you can ask for. And so it was a tough loss, and if we would have talked 4 seconds after the game, definitely would have been emotional, but it was, they've got a bright future to feel good.
Breech, I'm going to do this. We'll go through this with you like I went through it with Brinson when Phillip Rivers retired. 5 stages of grief: denial. So I think denial was
48 to 72 hours of denial is what we're living in right
I
now.
think he put denial and anger together, because denial's first and followed by anger. So
I think I went straight to anger, no denial. Because it was just like, you accept the loss. There was no, like,
you may have been in denial when Zac Taylor kept call the third down play to Samaje Perine. They may have done it.
Maybe the anger happened in game. Maybe anger.
No, it
was,
did. He said the officials on the Logan Wilson series got him fired up.
Right.
And next is bargaining. Have you sort of bargained with yourself that it's okay? You guys did a good job.
Sounds like he was doing it with Bengals fans on the way out. High five and like, hey, we'll be back.
He did all 5 stages.
So, you know what the funniest thing is? My sister's literally on her phone. Like, I'm booking an Airbnb in Phoenix next year because there's no way the Bengals aren't making it back. And my brother-in-law's like, I don't know if we need to do
definition of bargaining.
This is no joke. She was literally on the verge of booking an Airbnb in Phoenix because she's so sure
denial. That might be denial.
I don't know which one that is, but she might have invented a social media stage up. I almost took a picture of it and tweeted it out. And so I actually texted her, and I might share that. I was like, did you actually end up booking an Airbnb? And she's like, no, they talked me out of it, but I'm going to book one in July. For February.
You just wait for like several months and see how the season's going. I mean, it's like,
what about where are you at on depression? Because that's next. Have you been depressed or?
No, I mean, look, no one expected this team to be in the Super Bowl. It was like a free ride. It was like you bought a flight to.
This is some level of denial and bargaining.
No, you bought a ticket to Omaha, Nebraska. You bought a ticket to Omaha, Nebraska, and on the way there, the captain's like, we're actually going to Hawaii. You guys all won a contest. And that's how you feel with the Bengals Super Bowl
But
run.
wait, the pilot dropped you off in the middle of the ocean, though. You didn't get to Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Plane crashed before you got
you get to like the rainy side of
a volcano, bro.
You get to Hawaii, but it rains the whole time. So like you're still in Hawaii, but it's raining and that volcano erupts. So you don't get to enjoy it as much as you probably should.
And the final stage.
All right, hold on. We need to we'll get to the game in a second, but we do need to point out that like before the Raiders playoff game, you said you would be absolutely devastated if the Bengals lost because to the Raiders because they were clearly the better team. The Bengals hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. They had a home field advantage. It's just a game that they should win. They were favored. Before the Titans game, you said it would be fine if the Bengals lost. You're in Nashville. You get to see a Bengals playoff game. Not supposed to be here. Blah, 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 blah. Before the Chiefs game, no one expected them to win. So, you lose to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead to Patrick Mahomes, especially when you're down 21-3, you just take an L. It's all right. Before the Super Bowl, you said at this point, you were not willing to sign for a loss and to say, I'm happy to be there. And yet here you are in the aftermath of the Super Bowl saying that it's perfectly fine that you lost. I'm a little...
No, it's not perfectly fine. It's not, because we're going to go over a lot of my issues I had with the game, which I'm not spilling into now because we're talking about them in the podcast. So I'm just not sure I
would have gotten out of bed for like,
I don't know. I feel like if you talk to most Bengals fans, yes. Okay. If I had that option, I definitely would have done that. But I did, I chilled I wrote the newsletter Monday, chilled most of the day, went to the airport like 3 hours early and just sat there and with my head down with a hoodie on and my hood over my head and just stare at the floor for 3 hours.
Pulled an M&M.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
Yes, that's okay. That's what I wanted to hear, Breech. Sorry. Okay, so you just compacted your sadness, basically.
Have you accepted it? That's the last stage, acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's over it.
Okay,
I'm not over it, but I've accepted it. There's a big difference.
How long does it take you to get over, like when your girlfriend dumped you in high school? How long did that take? Like 35 minutes?
No, it takes like a couple days.
A couple days. He's over it a couple days.
I work through things pretty quickly though, because I can logically figure out what happened.
I would say you do. Well, let's work through it a little bit more. Let's see if this drags up.
We used to say this to our roommate in college. We're gonna make you cry without touching you. So let's see if we can do that.
All right. We'll start with this, Breech. Was T. Higgins touched? There was a play that you got a little worked. Were we talking about this on the?
No, he slacked. This was the 3 a.m. slacks.
Was it Jamar Chase or T. Higgins?
Jamar.
Oh, it's Jamar Chase. Sorry. So Jamar Chase catches a ball. Basically, break down the whole thing, Breech. Yeah, you were sending slacks at 3 a.m. Like, it was like you were Pepe Silvia. You're like
who's that?
The thing that you did with JJ.
I didn't do it.
He's like, hey, and you see here, he didn't touch him, and he should have been on the floor.
So obviously, the biggest complaint, if you're on Twitter or whatever, the biggest social media complaint I think was at the end of the game was the officiating, and I had said, during the podcast, I think on Sunday night, that I just felt like both teams got a free touchdown. So it didn't really, it was bad. It was bad officiating. But I said after the Raiders got screwed, Wilson, you had said in that Raiders game where the Bengals got a touchdown, the Bengals should have gotten a touchdown. So the right thing happened, and it's hard to get mad. And you guys asked me if I would get mad if it was reversed. And I was like, no, because the right thing happened. And so I feel like in this instance, I feel like both teams got a free touchdown, and that's where I fall on officiating. So those are even. This is the one that I thought was interesting. So we're talking about on Joe Burrow throws a 46-yard pass to Jamar Chase near the end of the first quarter. And Jamar Chase kind of falls and stumbles and lands at the 4-yard line. But the officials marked the ball at the 11-yard line because apparently they thought Jalen Ramsey touched him after he caught the ball, down by contact. And so that was the number one play I got texts about from Bengals fans' friends. They're like, how did they rule that down? Even Al Michaels on the broadcast, if you listen to the replay, mentions that he's down at the 4-yard line. And then when they came back from a commercial or something, they never mentioned why it got moved back to the 11. I still have not watched this game on TV. I probably never will. So because I got about 7 texts about that specific play, that was literally the only anything that I got texts about besides the officiating at the end with complaints. So I went back and watched it, and I'm watching this thing over and over. This is like Zapruder film. I'm pulling out every angle I can find. And so
back and to the left.
Watching it.
And then that's when his cousin.
Yes. So multiple times, I'm like, I am 99% sure Jalen Ramsey didn't touch him, but is that the Bengals fan of me? Or is this what actually happened? So then I drop in Slack. I'm like, anybody awake? Is anybody here to watch this? I need another set of eyes on this. And Brinson responds. He's like, what are you talking about? Why are you being crazy? What? Just tell me what you want to know. I'm like, watch this play and tell me if Jalen Ramsey touched Jamar Chase down. And then Brinson, you can tell me what you thought.
Wait. So, what exactly?
Okay. So real quick, if Jalen Ramsey did not touch him,
and this was after the interception.
No, this was that's
what I was asking.
No, the Rams had just punted. So the Rams were up 7-0. And then the Bengals threw a 46-yard pass from their own 43 down to the Rams 11. If Jalen Ramsey
and then there's 3 incompletions. They don't. Oh my God, because this killed the first quarter under. Because
real quick.
One run from Zac Taylor, and if they're at the 4, by the way, he probably runs and gets stuffed, and it probably goes under the first quarter.
But so if Jalen Ramsey did not touch Jamar Chase, then the Bengals would have had a 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. And so
instead they had a 1st and 10 from the 11.
Right.
And they throw 3 times. It's incomplete. They kick with McPherson, and then in fact, they actually had time for the kickoff before the end of the first quarter.
I will say this.
No reason. God, still that should have gone under the first quarter.
Here's the thing. I'm looking at my notes, Breech. So the first pass was tipped by Von Miller. The second pass when Weddle got hurt going low on Mixon, and the third pass was arguably T. Higgins should have caught that ball. Jim Ramsey broke it up, and it was a good PBU, as they say in the business, but it hit him in the hands, and he just he got it jerked out of his hands by Jalen. So.
That was my first pass. He got mauled on too.
I'm talking a 3rd down and 10 from the 11. That was.
And Wilson, I just put the play in Slack so you can see it.
Which one?
The Jamar Chase, Jalen Ramsey play.
I would say. All right. Here's what I would say. I would say when you watch the play.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part. I'm talking about the 3rd down play to T. Higgins. Go ahead.
He's very clear. He was touched by Ramsey. Touched him, made contact with him as he's running his route. There's absolutely no contact after he catches the ball and falls down. He should have been down at the 4.
We can't see the back. We can't. Maybe I'm fine. I think Breech is right, but we can't see Jalen whether he touched the back of his heel.
And now the other part of this is that, I think on the Sunday night's podcast, I said I gave Zac Taylor about a C- for this game, maybe a D after going through everything in my head.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things you don't put on the officials. This is something the coach needs to challenge. This is 7 yards inside the 11-yard line. So those are 7 huge yards. The Bengals from the 4, I think, scored a touchdown. The Bengals from the 11 are a completely different team because the red zone was horrible in the playoffs. So
it's funny you say that. Like, I thought Zac Taylor did an above average Zac Taylor job. And again,
he just key situations.
Yeah, fair enough. But what about my
Which we'll
third
talk
down?
about.
Do you remember the T. Higgins pass on third down that he, like, it's 50-50 whether he catches it, but if he
Yeah,
catches
He caught it like literally 1 yard in the end zone,
Right.
and Jalen Ramsey made a nice play out, but Higgins probably should have caught it.
So that makes me feel a little better about it. But I take your point. I agree with you about the no touch.
Like, the Bengals had 2 timeouts at halftime. Why couldn't you have used one of those on a challenge?
Well, yeah. I mean, you should have.
Well, he had the over on the timeouts is why.
This comes back to one of the issues that I've talked about all season long, or at least since about halfway through the season when the NFL started implementing it. Where's the eye in the sky?
They didn't show up. They didn't go to the Super Bowl. They were in the stands drinking.
I mean, there was absolutely. That's something to remember, I think, too, for future Super Bowls and depending on the referees that are assigned to them. It was very clear to me that this game was meant to be like left alone by the officials. And I think that the NFL made a point of telling these officials, don't throw, don't. Basically, they met with the crew and like, look, we don't want a bunch of flag. We don't want a flag fest. We don't want you slowing the game down. This is not about you. This is about the stars of the game. That game was fast. It was like they were allowed to play, and
that's fine if they're consistently doing that. You can't have
you change it up.
There was only 4 penalties called the entire game, and then there was 4 penalties called in that last 2-minute sequence or the last 3 minutes of the game. So that's a huge contradiction of how you've been calling the game. And that was Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy, a former coach, complained. A Hall of Fame, a Super Bowl winning coach, said the exact same thing, that, look, if you're going to let them play, then let them play. You can't change the way you're officiating at the end of the game.
Yeah, the Bengals were like, we've been allowed to do whatever we want this entire game physically with these receivers. We're going to keep doing it. And then all of a sudden the officials were like, that's a flag, and that's a flag. Because if they've been calling the pass interference and stuff like that, and sort of the physicality of the nature on defense, if they've been calling it for the whole game, I think the Rams produced a lot more points because the Bengals were really aggressive with their DBs, and it's fine. Like if it's being officiated that way, it's fine. This is a no-brainer. I don't know what Zac Taylor was thinking. I don't know why the NFL didn't show up and use the eye in the sky. I think part of it probably falls on...
And you have 100 different camera angles at the Super Bowl. This isn't like a regular season game where you might have 3 angles of it.
Did they rush up to run the next play? I don't believe so. No, there was... Oh, my God. There was nearly a minute of time elapsed between the 2 snaps, 132 and 42 seconds. There is tons of time to look at that. And so it's on Zac Taylor. And I don't know who I'm blaming here.
Yeah, I don't put it on the officials. I think that the officials, they get calls like this wrong. It happens. That's what the challengers are for, though. That's what the challengers are for. Literally, it's the first half. You have nothing to lose.
And like you said, it's 7 yards, a massive 7 yards, because you go from 1st and 10 at the 11 to 1st and goal at the 4. You feel like you're getting 6 if you get 1st and goal at the 4.
Right. If this was like at the 43-yard line to the 50-yard line, that's a huge difference. But when you're talking about 11 yards to the end zone and you're getting 7 free ones by challenging this, you got to take it. You're getting 70% of the way to the end zone from where you are.
I also my only pushback is that T. Higgins had a chance to catch it. I get what you're saying, but I mean, it wasn't like Joe Burrow got strip sacked and the ball turned over.
I also sort of wonder if they're on the 4-yard line. One, they definitely run the ball at least once.
Twice to Samaje Perine.
Sorry, I think there's actually a chance that they would go for it on 4th down if they got inside the 2-yard line.
Yeah, they did it because Breech was actually nervous on the first drive when they did it, and I thought they did the right thing.
I didn't. I disagree with that one.
But at any rate, like that really, I mean, you go for it on the 4th down, like short there, and you miss. And the Rams get the ball. I mean, they could have changed the entire complexity of the game.
Well, and the interesting thing about, and I think the analytics were like medium on that one. It wasn't a hard go for it or a hard don't go for it. And you have a more perception, I guess, or your heart's into it and you're watching it as a fan. And as soon as that 4th and 1 came up, I was like, please punt the ball, because your defense just made a great stop on the Rams' first possession. And my thought was that if you go for it and fail, you're giving the Rams the ball at midfield. They have one of the best offenses in the NFL. And if they score any points, you've lost all semblance of momentum. You're shooting yourself in the foot, and there's no reason to do that when you're in a spot where you could easily pin them inside the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line. And it's the Super Bowl. Your team's never playing it. You might have the offensive jitters are there. We've seen it happen all the time in Super Bowls where the scoring starts off slow. And the Bengals, they only got 9 yards on 3 plays. They didn't even get a first down those 3 plays. Right. And so, yeah, I wanted them to punt there. And the fact that you don't have Joe Mixon on the field, which we're going to talk about more. You don't have.
I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, and we come back. We will rip Zac Taylor to shreds. So you mentioned no Joe Mixon, and I mean, I think if I were thinking of one thing that's sort of disappointing from this game, aside from losing it, if you're a Bengals fan, is that you sort of have to, like, don't you sort of wonder, is Zac Taylor a good, like, you may have even said this on Sunday, Breech, like, do you even know if Zac Taylor's a good coach? Like, he just went to the Super Bowl. Like when McVay went to the Super Bowl early in his career 3 years ago or whatever, it's like, all right, I'm pretty sure McVay's a good coach. I feel confident saying Sean McVay's a good coach. I don't know that Zac Taylor, and I actually, I don't know if we know if Sean McVay's still a good coach, but that's beside the point. I don't know. Like, is this outcome of this season where you go to the Super Bowl and lose, is it in some ways potentially bad just because it's like Zac Taylor? I mean, he has 10 years of wiggle room now, right? Like,
well, I was actually thinking about that. I'm thinking, like, I'll give him 17. What's half of 17? 8.5. I give him 15.5 games. No, that's not right.
They're just
25.5 games. Sorry. That he, like, 2024, he might be in trouble.
Yeah. He is. There is zero chance you could put him on any sort of warmth seat for 2020, just because one is because of the Bengals, right? Like maybe a different team. We've seen, like, college, this happens all the time, right? Like Ed Orgeron wins a title and he's gone. Gene Chizik wins a title, gone in 2 years.
No, he's zero hots. If he's on a hot seat list, that person doesn't know what they're doing with hot seat lists for 2022
and probably 2023.
And so, but you're talking about a coach who only won 6 games, and now you're in a Super Bowl. So there is, I think the interesting thing here is, I think Rappaport reported on Sunday that Taylor's expected to get an extension this offseason now, and see that right there
means that he's not going, they're not paying for 2 coaches.
Right. And so if I'm running the Bengals, I'm letting him coach 1 more year before I make any decisions, because you can't, and that's not, again, I don't think Zac Taylor
a 4-year or 5-year deal when he started.
I don't think he's a bad coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's somewhere between average and great right now, and that he could move up. If this continues in the next season, he's going to keep moving up. But right now, just because he only won 6 games his first 2 seasons, I think you just have to sit back, wait and see what he does in year 4. And he's got a 5-year deal, so it's not like he's going anywhere. And then give him that.
Here's what
he's the lowest paid NFL head coach, by the way.
Here's what I just
that's
found.
Classic Bengals. So
before Debo's dude, Doug, no NFL head coach had ever been fired within 6 years of winning the Super Bowl. So maybe he is in for the long haul. And the Browns.
You said of winning a Super Bowl.
Oh, that's true. There you go. You got off the hook there.
Yeah. So
I forgot they fired Doug right after winning a Super Bowl.
No, I think, Brinson, what you were about to say, he's fine in 2023 too. I just think if he wins, let's say 6 games next season, that's a huge underachievement that puts him on the warm seat heading the next season. And then you don't make the playoffs in 2023, then that's where you say, all right, do we have the right guy? He's been bad 4 seasons. So there's a lot of wiggle room here when you get to a Super Bowl because you earned it. But obviously next year, and just the way he coaches this game, because I think that's where we were going with this point with the Joe Mixon stuff and having one of your best athletes off the field on all of these pivotal plays. And that was when Mixon wasn't out there for 4th and 1, or even the 4th and 1 at the end of the game that cost the Bengals the championship, when Joe Mixon wasn't on the field and they win an empty set. And when your quarterback's been sacked 6 times in the half and you're out in an empty set, are you kidding me? What are you doing? What
are we doing here? It felt so. The Bengals throughout the season very consistently took Joe Mixon off the field on 3rd downs for Samaje Perine. Near the end of the season, I don't know if Perine was hurt. I don't know exactly what the deal was. Perine was not coming on nearly as much. Mixon was a workhorse down the stretch. And then in the playoffs, they went back to the Perine stuff. And So I guess it's like if you're gonna run on that 3rd and 1 near the end before the next like 3 plays before the end of the game, like are you putting Samaje Perine out there because you're trying to like trick the Rams into thinking you're not going to run and it's a pass play? Because I guess that's the only excuse. Otherwise, Joe Mixon's got to be out there. This guy is just Joe freaking Mixon. Like he's
and you can't go empty set, and you can't go empty.
Right, you cannot go
when your quarterback's been sacked 6 times in the second half.
The way that Aaron Donald's been winning, it's 4th and 4. You have to give him some help back there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we mentioned. We didn't really even wrap up with the challenge. I also think that whoever's looking at the looking up, like whoever's upstairs for the spotter for Zac Taylor is on the hook for that too. Like was anyone in his ear like, hey man, you got to challenge that? It did feel like
2 plays that the Bengals could have challenged that they did not. I said that's the second one now that we're talking about. They could have challenged that they did not.
Which way? Which one? The
Jamar Chase one and this one.
Or you think the 3rd down should have been challenged?
You have nothing to, or I guess you can't challenge it because it's inside 2 minutes. So
yeah.
You could.
I didn't think it was that close. Live.
Yeah.
Watching on TV, I don't think it was as close. Maybe as it looked in
I think at the minimum, you should have asked the official for a measurement, and that way you have time to you get a free timeout basically.
It felt like it felt like at various points in this game that that things were sped up a little bit for Zac Taylor, not so much for Joe Burrow. And that maybe the Rams, the Bengals have been so good at adjusting at half. Sort of maybe the Bengals came out hot in the second half, but it felt like the Rams counter adjustments or the Rams adjustments were better than the Bengals adjustments.
Yeah, the Rams weren't able to run the ball. The Bengals
on defense, not on offense.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, also
they said Raheem Morris switched to like that 5-man front. And
we talked about that a little bit with Breech after the Super Bowl, but the Bengals were basically working with 2 hands tied behind their back because that offensive line was so terrible all year, and they played well for 35 minutes or so. So, I don't know. It is what it is.
I also think that there's a good case to be made that the Bengals were not. The Bengals were not the best team in football. Like the Bengals sort of got here. The Bengals pulled. This season was a magical season for the Bengals.
I told Breech, they were the 2005. They were the 2005 Steelers. That team didn't win the division. They went on the road. They won on the road, even though the Bengals had that first playoff game.
And a crazy thing to think about in this game, though, is that the Bengals led in the second half for 28 minutes and 23 seconds.
Yeah, that's tough.
And you just keep reading about how, the Rams dominated the second half or this and that because Burrow got sacked. Okay, but the Bengals led almost the entire second half.
What was the turning point for you when you knew that it was looking bleak? Was it Samaje Perine or before that?
Samaje Perine was 4th and 1.
Literally, I will say that at the end of the third quarter, when I realized the Rams had they were driving, they just got into the Bengals territory at the end of the third quarter, and in my head, I'm thinking if they can force upon this drive, I think they're going to win because they were up. It was 20-16 at that point. Joe Burrow just gotten sacked 5 times.
It was 20-13. It
was 20-13 at the end of the third.
They kicked the field goal with 6 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yes, it was 2016.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the third quarter, and in my head, because the Rams were at midfield at that point, and they had all the momentum, and it just in my head, I'm just saying, if they punt here, the Bengals can win this game. The Bengals are going to win this game because Joe Burrow just gotten sacked 5 times in the third quarter. It just felt like the Bengals got destroyed in the third quarter, except for that first play to T. Higgins. But even though they got destroyed, they were still winning. And
I think the Rams did punt.
Well, that's where I'm going with this.
Oh, okay.
So the first 2 plays of the fourth quarter,
anger dunk.
the first 2 plays of the fourth quarter, Cam Akers loses 2 yards. Then it's a 3rd and 7, I think at midfield or maybe at the Bengals 49-yard line. Stafford throws an incompletion, and I'm just like, oh my God, they forced a punt. And then I was at that point, my confidence went from 55 to 80%.
Yeah. I was saying probably said in Slack, and I was saying definitely, to friends and all text and whatnot. I was like, when it was 20-16, and so the Rams had there's 3 straight drives where they went punt, 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 and the Bengals also went punt, and the Bengals weren't doing anything either. They were punt, 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 punt. But when it was 20-16, it's like it just feels like it's a 14-point lead. Like it feels like the Bengals are in complete control of this game. And honestly, and this can actually get us into our next point that I wanted to deep dive on. That final drive by the Rams, 15 plays, 72 yards, only 7 yards of penalties, which is a little surprising. It felt like 42 at the end. 7 first downs, results in a touchdown with a minute, 90 seconds roughly 90 seconds left. I almost feel like that drive was born completely out of desperation for the Rams. And they said, and I think McVay has come back and said this, or he's had quotes in articles that I've read where he's like, he and Kevin O'Connell, actually, it was on SI.com, Albert Rear's recap. He spoke to McVay in the tunnel after the game. And he mentioned McVay had a vodka drink twice. Right. O'Connell and McVay both were like, essentially, we said, F it. We're just going to figure out how to get the ball to Cooper Kupp. We know that they're putting the 3 guys on Cooper Kupp. We don't care. We've got to get him the ball because with Odell Beckham out, they didn't trust enough their other guys. And I probably rewatched that throw from Matthew Stafford, the no-look throw, where I probably watched it a million times on.
Yeah, we Breech and I both, and Debo too, have all blocked you on Twitter because I can't get.
Yeah, I'm annoying on Twitter right now.
Here's the thing, and so how many carries they have? They had 17, like 24, 25 carries. I can't do the math real quick. The Rams did. Prior to that last drive, the Rams had 0 successful carries. The EPA was 0 basically on 18 carries. One of the 4 teams to post a 0.0% rushing success rate in a game over the last 6 seasons. That's per Next Gen Stats.
It's unbelievably bad.
And then, as you mentioned on the last drive, they're like, well, maybe this running stuff isn't working 97% of the way through the game. And the previous drive, and Breech, I don't know if you mentioned this because I was looking at something else. That's the Tyler Boyd drop on 3rd down that gets it to at least 3rd and 1, maybe 3rd and a half.
Oh, that
first his only drop of the entire season.
That drop was huge.
So that was at the moment I was like, oh boy, Tyler, you can't drop that ball. It didn't feel like the game was over because the Rams had done literally nothing to that point.
It felt like the Rams got life.
That's true. It may have given him a little kick in the pants, and then Sean said, "Finally, okay, I get it. I got to do something different."
And if you get the first down there, you're basically at midfield with 6 minutes left in the game and a fresh set of downs and winning. So at the minimum, you get a field. You only need 10 more yards.
Was the drop on 3rd down?
It was on 3rd and 9.
It was either going to be really close to a first down or
4th and 1.
It was going to be 4th and 1, and Zac Taylor was going to go.
But if it is a first down, there's only 6 minutes left, and you have a fresh set of downs, and you only need 15 yards to be in field goal range, which puts you up a touchdown. So, like, even
what would you have said if Evan McPherson had a chance to tie the game at the end and missed a 47-yarder? Would you blame it on sitting there at halftime and watching the show?
Oh yeah, that would have been a hot Stephen A. Smith would have done that. All right, but the Stafford throw.
Wait, I want to hear what Breech has to say.
No, I wouldn't have blamed any Evan McPherson. They're only that far because of him, so you're not going to pin him.
14 to 14.
Like
that's a record.
Yeah, ties a record.
Do you think it is fair to put the throw from Stafford and for those others, the throw to Cooper Kupp?
No, go ahead.
The angle is insane when you see it from Von Bell's angle. Von Bell played it perfectly. There's no other way he could have played it. Stafford pats the ball, sort of pump fakes like he's throwing the inside route, and
it's like Groundhog Day.
What?
I can't get away from this freaking play, all because of you.
Von Bell makes a move inside.
Yes,
because he's thinking like, I'm going to stop. I'm going to jump this. And Stafford and he's got his eyes locked on the right route instead of the middle route where Cooper Kupp is. And then without breaking eye contact on the right route, he flings it a laser. And you can see Von Bell realizes it and is like going back and is like, what the hell? Like, I mean, like, and again, I'm not blaming Von Bell at all. He played it perfectly. He played it the way you have to play it.
So I'm going to back Brinson up here because I think this was a top 3 throw in Super Bowl history. I think it's up there. This is up there. Down hard. Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Holmes is on that list.
Okay, let's rank them. So you got them on list. You got the helmet catch, no doubt, on the list.
I'll say top 5, and I think maybe you could put it in the top 3.
Okay, Manningham's on the list.
The helmet catch is weird though because
it's amazing.
Well, of course, but it's like
the Julian Edelman tipped ball to himself.
the Julio Jones losing the catch.
There's a lot of great catches, but I think no. It's a top 5 throw, not catch.
Correct.
Throw.
Because like the helmet
top
catch,
5 throw.
The helmet catch is not a great throw. It's Eli under pressure.
Threw it up.
But
yeah,
Eli,
there's a difference.
Eli beat 7 guys twice.
Ben's throw in against the Cardinals, he threw into triple coverage, had a 3-inch window to work with in the back corner. Like, that's a crazy throw.
The Manningham throw, when you rewatch it, it's like it comes off of Eli's arm so fast and is in this like minuscule. I rewatched it a bunch yesterday. It's like this minuscule little like bucket. It's just like there's nowhere else to put it, and it's so bang bang. And we were there, we saw it live. I think it's a top 5. I think Stafford's throw is a top 5 Super Bowl throw.
No, I'll put it in top 5. Once you mentioned like top 1 or 2, I was like, okay, hold on a second.
Well, and again, I think the distinction between throw and catch is really important here. Like,
right.
Like I know Eli did a bunch of stuff to evade the rushers, but and he got the ball out, but it wasn't like, it was more of like a sort of a desperation heave versus
the other part of this is like,
give you that.
Oh, you know what else is up there?
Well, go ahead.
The Mahomes, Tyreek, the 3rd and 15 Wasps.
I think that fits more into the Eli Manning than I think Stafford's throw is actually better than that.
I think it's better than that too.
Because Tyreek was wide ass open.
Yeah.
So exactly. Right. And so that was the other part. Is so the advantage of like sitting where I was at the game is because you have like a permanent all 22 view of everything that's happening, and you are zoned in when this play happens because it's near the end of the game. I'm paying close attention. And when Von Bell stutter stepped toward the other receiver to give Stafford that 3 inches he needed of extra air room to get the ball into Cooper Kupp, in my head, I saw it happen. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Von? Like, why would you step away from Cooper Kupp? Because I couldn't see the no-look aspect of this from where I was sitting.
Right.
And then you see the replay and you're like, oh my God, that's just a brilliant throw. Von Bell, you can't be blamed at all. That's just like, that is just a brilliant play that you can't really defend because.
So you saw the no-look aspect in the.
Not to the replay afterwards.
On the replay is what I'm saying. Like,
because watching it live, I couldn't believe Von Bell fell for a throw to why he stuttered left away from Cooper Kupp.
Right.
And like, why would you do that? And it was clear because that's where he thought Stafford was throwing it.
Somebody, there was like one random guy in my mentions or like in just on Twitter, like replying. He's like, it's a great throw, but it's not a no-look throw. It's like, he's not looking at the guy he threw to. It's a no.
Well, I would like to know whether his head's pointed right and he's looking left. Because here's the thing. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes does that.
You do one of these things where your eyes are rolled to where you're, but that's still impressive because you're throwing everybody.
I get it, but here's what I was going to say. When Patrick Mahomes does it and misses guys that are wide open, then you're like, what are you doing? That's all.
Well, yeah,
but if Stafford doesn't look away, Von Bell doesn't stutter step, and he probably bats the ball down.
If Stafford doesn't stare down the non-Cooper, was it Skoranek or was it I'm never sure if it was Skoranek or the tight end, whoever it was, if he doesn't stare him down, Von Bell doesn't take that little step. And there's also, like I said, I mentioned on,
and there's no window because Bell only missed the ball by like 3 inches.
And it was crazy close. And like, so Stafford does this, he does a little like arm cock and pats the ball, and it was like, and now he's gonna throw it, and he does throw it. But Von Bell's like, okay, this guy, he did the thing he does. He's preparing to throw it. The ball's coming out. I'm gonna pick six this thing, and then credit again to Von Bell. Stafford whips it, and Bell is like, oh my God, that ball's going to my right, and is like almost back in time to get it, but there's just enough room, and Cooper Kupp's running into space. And the anticipation required to make that throw without looking in that stage with that as much time as there was left, knowing that this is the legacy drive. Like, if Stafford doesn't get a touchdown on that drive, y'all are killing me. Y'all are killing him. It's like Stafford laid an egg in the Super Bowl. Two interception. The narrative would be that Stafford didn't like that. Stafford lost the Super Bowl if he didn't have that legacy defining drive.
Well, if the Bengals score a touchdown and win 27-23, I think the narrative's still Stafford lost in the Super Bowl and then Burrow won it.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
And just because, and again, I think we said this the other night, 10 years from now, it's going to say Matthew Stafford led them to a touchdown drive. That's what people are going to remember. But for right now, you have Richard Sherman shooting Brinson down on Twitter and trying to kill his Matthew Stafford Hall of Fame argument. But I think
murdered Sherman on that debate.
Well, but I'm saying with this though, there's still that controversy of did the officials give Stafford the touchdown more than Stafford earned it? But again, I'm the Bengals guy, and I think Stafford made a top 5 throw in Super Bowl history, and that got them down to where they needed to be. That was a 26 yard gain.
Man, that took what a wild roller coaster of emotions for me just now. I'm thinking Wilson's like, I can't talk about this throw anymore, and then Breech is like, I gotta say, it is the top 5 throw in Super Bowl history. All right.
Well, Breech and I said earlier that if we just lean in favor of you, you'll just quit talking about it. So we'll see.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, comebacks don't happen often, but they did for the Rams in this game. So this is the 5th time in Super Bowl history that a team is trailing and scored to take the lead in the final 2 minutes, which is wild. We were going over the Super Bowl rankings list.
Trailing and scored a touchdown.
Oh, scored a touchdown to take the lead. Excuse me. There was Eli against the Patriots the first time when he hit Plaxico Burress. Oh, no. Joe Montana over to John Taylor.
Never heard of that one. Which one? When was that?
Big Ben to Santonio Holmes. The Giants again with that Ahmad Bradshaw accidental touchdown, and then Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp. So 2 on Brady and 2 on the Bengals, plus the legendary Big Ben to Santonio Holmes. So I think that this is also sort of correlated to the fact that we were talking about ranking the Super Bowls. There's just a ton of blowouts for like the first 30 years of the Super Bowl. There's just tons of blowouts. And now there's all these, really close, crazy games. Do you want to talk about the fact? Oh boy, Breech looks like he's drifting back into anger.
The Bengals are on this list twice. The Bengals have 3 Super Bowl losses by a total of 12 points. You lose your first Super Bowl by 5 points. You lose your second Super Bowl by 4 points. You lose your third Super Bowl by 3 points. Like, they just get progressively more painful, which doesn't even seem possible because you're thinking
3 years from now, you'll be a winner.
Maybe, unless we lose in overtime, because I think that would be next.
How's your dad holding up? How's friend of the podcast, Jim Breech, holding up?
It's funny. We text after the game. I haven't got a chance to talk to him yet because I was traveling yesterday, and now it's Tuesday. I'm hanging out with you guys. So I've got to I'll have my catch up phone call with him either later today or tomorrow, and I'll report back. But I know that, it was, yeah, I mean, he'll just, in the text, he just points, if a couple of these other plays could have gone our way, then they win. And it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that you're literally only 1 or 2 plays away from winning a Super Bowl. I was sitting behind Mike Martin, a former Bengals player who played in Super Bowl 23. I told you that he actually predicted Stafford's, I think, second interception or
the second one. Yep.
Yeah. So that was after the Bengals took a lead, and before the ball even kicked off, he's like, Stafford's going to press on this drive. Bet you he throws an interception on the first or second play. And it was the first play. And it was literally crazy to just hear him say that. And he was emotional after the game. He had some tears in his eyes, and I'm sure my dad did too. And it was like, for these guys, it's like reliving. All you're hoping is, we just lost one of the most painful Super Bowls ever in Super Bowl 23. If you're a former player, and you're thinking, I don't want to see this team live. I don't want to see anyone go through this again. I don't want anyone to deal with the emotions I had to experience. And here we are, a new generation of Bengals fans hit with another impossible loss. I mean, we're literally looking at a list. This has only happened 5 times ever, and 40% of them are to the Bengals. I mean, it's just.
And then the other 2 are those like insane Giants wins over the Patriots that had no business.
The Patriots fans have 6 Super Bowl rings to like get over those losses, So like, it's not like.
And Big Ben's got and then the Cardinals. Well, I guess the Cardinals.
Right, the Cardinals are kind of in the same boat, but they don't have 3 of them. They don't have multiple just back-breaking losses that just emotional. I think that might be why I'm not sad. You're emotionally burnt out. There's nothing else.
You're an emotional armadillo. Like your shell is too tough to be burnt by.
After this many times that it's happened, you're just like, oh my God, here we go again.
I was doing that home field Twitter Spaces thing for the NC State release. I know I bring up NC State way too much, but like they're like, can some of you guys who are the invited speakers talk to us about the emotional, like the mental state of an NC State fan? I was like, yeah, I mean, we're the great innovators of pain. You know, like that's like this is what we do is we find new ways to backbreak us, to backbreak the fans.
Oh,
And
by the way, that reminds me. I was listening to well, this won't surprise you. I was listening to NPR yesterday, and Greg Miller is a huge sports fan. I don't think he's a Bengals fan, but he was an NPR, and he's a therapist, and he specializes in therapy for people who are huge fans and need time, like punch televisions and can't get over, do their day to day. That's not you, Breech, but I'm sure there's some people that could use that after what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so Cooper Kupp had an incredible season. If you include if you include the regular season, he had 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. If you include
and his biggest play wasn't even those; it was his run on 4th and 1 with 5 minutes left to go, and at their own 30-yard line.
Their own 30.
I mean, that was, what's funny is we always call McVay conservative. I actually thought he was going to punt there because they had all 3 timeouts. They had all 3 timeouts. They're at their own 30. If they fail, you're giving the Bengals a field goal because Evan McPherson's not missing. And then you're down a touchdown.
Yeah. I said in the group chat, for whatever reason, this group chat of my crew, like we always talk about these 4th down situations. And I was like, this is a no-brainer, right? And somebody was like, no, it's not. You could definitely punt here. I was like,
all 3 timeouts. You're only down 4 points, 5 minutes left. It's not like, and your defense has stopped the Bengals on 4 straight possessions.
For me, it was like we also the question that gets asked, it's like, okay, Carolina has the ball. They're up 4 against us, or we're up 4 against them. It's 4th and 1. Do you want them to go or punt? And I'm like, punt, please punt. Like, as a Bengals fan, what did you want McVay to do?
Oh, I want him to punt it, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm like, if they go for it, they can't run it. They have not been able to run the ball. That is way too risky. So they're gonna have to throw it, and they run a freaking reverse.
That was a great play call.
This is a jet sweep.
Yeah, whatever. I haven't watched a replay of it. Yeah,
is it or a jet sweep? I thought it was
same difference. It's just he's going. There's no reverse.
Okay. Either way, I mean, they did what they did. They did what they should have been doing the entire freaking game. It's like figure out a way to get the ball in Cooper Kupp's hands in non-traditional methods because the Bengals are like motion him. Somebody Collinsworth maybe mentioned it before, or Drew Brees mentioned it before. I can't remember, but it was like watch for all the motion. Oh no, it was Rodney Harrison. Because he said that Von Bell told him, they're like, look, if they don't motion guys, we know what this offense is going to do. We can play this offense. But if they do a ton of motion, it just makes it more difficult to figure out. And it felt like McVay's play designs for basically the entire game were just and maybe losing Odell Beckham messed it up. But it felt like it was just very vanilla. There wasn't like this, like where was the Cooper? Like where were the Cooper Kupp rushes? Like I wanted those early on if I'm a Rams fan, and they finally used it on that 4th down. It was ballsy to go for it. And Kupp,
I don't think so. I think also it'd have been ballsy if they ran straight up the middle with Sonny Michel or.
That would have been stupid, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that we talked about this after the game that sometimes you get a little too cute on 4th down. I think that was the right play call given that nothing else was working, and they had to go for it. I can't imagine maybe. Sean McVay discussed punting it, but if he had
punted it and they lose the game, that is our biggest talking point on like this after the game. Like
Matthew Stafford and then him.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm the Bengals guy. I wanted to punt. As a Bengals fan, that's what you want to do. I have to think Rams fans wanted him to go for it. I thought he should have gone for it, and he did.
Yeah,
and that that was.
I thought it was a no-brainer. I was surprised to get pushback from people on it.
Actually, I'm with you on that one.
Cooper Kupp finished the season, if you include the playoffs, 2,425 yards, 180 receptions. I almost said interceptions. Then you would have made a Matthew Stafford joke.
Correct.
And 22 touchdowns. He joins Joe Montana from 1989. Oh my God. As the only players to win Offensive Player of the Year and the Super Bowl MVP in the same season. And both guys beat the Bengals in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. That's
how many games regular
how many
season?
Times can we tie things to that? Where the only other time it happened was when they beat the Bengals.
How many regular season games and playoff games Super Bowl combined did Cooper Kupp have fewer than 92 receiving yards?
I'm not looking, but I have looked at this in the last 4 days.
1?
No, it's 3, I think.
It is
1. No, if you count the Super Bowl, it might be 4.
It's 1.
It's 1. Wait, fewer than what?
92.
Oh, 92.
This was his lowest, one of his lowest totals, and he still won MVP.
That's right. He's had 11 games of 100+ receiving yards, 4 games of over 130 receiving yards, and he only had 53 receiving yards until that final drive. 4 catches, 53, and then he had
his over/under was 105.5 and it was and that was the lowest total prop he's had in in like 6 weeks.
And by the way, the Athletic
Well-
Shell Capadia, who you claim is a friend of this podcast, I don't have verification of that,
He's been on this podcast.
says that doesn't mean shit. He says that when Matthew Stafford targeted Kupp in the fourth quarter during the playoffs, he was 12 for 12 for 208 yards, 9 first downs, 2 touchdowns. Kupp has the most fourth quarter receiving yards in a single postseason of any player since at least 2000.
And it's funny because when we did the over-under for Cooper Kupp, I went first on the podcast last week on our Pick Six show, said the under, and Brinson, you laughed. You're like, that's when you gave me the Breech, you're just trying to will all this stuff into existence. There's no way he's going under. And because it seemed like if he went under, that the Bengals would win if you're shutting down Cooper Kupp. And then here was it played out that he went under and they still won.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it was, I think let's tie in Odell's injury, right? Odell tore his ACL. He's going to have surgery. It really clouds his future because he said he was willing to take a pay cut to come back to Los Angeles. Now, I guess you're the Rams. You're still willing to do it, but actually, I guess if you're the Rams, you're fine with it because you have Robert Woods who's coming back, and then so you can maybe be patient with Odell. But an ACL tear in the Super Bowl, man. I mean, that's that obviously as late as it can possibly happen. It's like a month away from free agency. That's a tough spot to be for Odell. And he was starting to play. He's starting to play really well. Look,
Same knee.
Yeah.
That sucks.
It does. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up back with the Rams. I almost sort of hope the Rams throw him a bone. They're like, hey, look, you were so key for us down the stretch. We don't win a Super Bowl without Odell Beckham. We don't win a Super Bowl without Von Miller, right? So we're gonna give you a decent contract for like a 2-year deal with I don't know how you do it, but just give him some money and be like, just take your time, get back in shape.
I think you give him a 1-year deal and say give him a fair amount. That way, if he doesn't, this is the second ACL tear, in a short amount of time.
I mean, he could be 9 months before he's back.
Right. And so I think you just kind of reward him for what he did for you. Yeah. You don't have to throw, because he knows it's going to be hard for him to get. He's not going to get a multi-year deal and free agency in March. So I think if you're the Rams, you don't have to make him the highest paid anything because he's coming off an injury, but you give him, I don't know, what do you give him, like $7 million? What's fair?
Oh no, it's going to be more
too
than that.
low.
Andy Dalton got $10 million a year to be the Bears punching bag.
So average per year. I mean,
I think the bigger issue is the second ACL because there's only so many times that, you can keep doing it, of course.
Stephon Diggs makes 14.4, and Corey Davis makes 12.5. I think you could, if you have the money, and the Rams might not have the money, and that's the problem if you do a 1-year deal. You got to worry about the salary cap stuff. I think somewhere between 10 and 14 million, but geez Louise, man. I mean,
give him a 1-year $12 million deal.
Juju Smith-Schuster signed a 1-year $8 million deal with the Steelers, didn't he?
Odell is unquestionably better than Juju.
Yep.
No, I think you do 1 year 12 and incentives, yada yada yada, because he's not going to be ready to go, presumably until maybe November, October.
Yeah, I would think. I would think it's probably.
Let's change February.
I mean, November is 9 months.
2 + 8 is 10. He'll be back before 9 months. The young guys come back before that. Assuming
probably not that young.
No, I mean professional athletes, not 40-year-old men playing in old men's soccer.
Okay. Let's see. What was Odell making? My goodness, he was making nothing. And he's gotten big contracts in the past. I think there's something here where you can work it out. And you're right, like make it incentive based. So you come back earlier, you're ready to go. We make it, give him like a monster, give him a $10 million bonus if you win the Super Bowl again or something like that.
I just want to point this out. Breech wants to pay Odell Beckham $7 million for 1 year, but wants a 3rd-round pick for Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, Breech is no sense.
Worst GM ever.
Fantastic GM.
Breech is like it's like my wife's sense of money.
Yeah, exactly. John Breech, new GM of the Texans.
Speaking of injuries, is there any concern for Joe Burrow's injury with his knee?
He's getting it tested. As we do this podcast on Tuesday afternoon, I don't think any results will come back.
I'm going to say it has been. I hope it's a no news is good news situation, but I do not like how quiet it's been on that front.
I don't know if they've tested it yet. If that makes you feel
well, right, but usually you get the report of early signs believe that this is the injury, and it looks like this, and they'll have tests tonight to confirm it. And there's been nothing.
I'll just say this
that's concerning, right?
As the expert orthopedic person.
Well, that's what I just said. I hope it's no news.
Hold on.
But it does feel.
Debo, I just want to point this out. Our buddy Quinn could not believe how much trouble I had getting in a word with these two buttholes interrupting me all the time, just in the course of regular conversation, not even on the podcast. And Breech, as it turns out, might be worse than Brinson, which is sort of a sneaky thing.
It's been a Bengals month. Once we get back to normal, things will be back to normal.
I was trying to give you some good news, but you interrupted me, so I'm not going to tell you.
Well, I want to hear it.
Give the good news. It's the podcast. We don't pout on the podcast.
I'm not pouting. I'm not pouting. The thing is, when they say, "Oh, it seems like yada yada yada," they don't know. They're just sort of doing like the on-field test. You have to do the MRI to see what's shredded and what's not shredded. So I don't think no news might be good news, but just because they haven't said everything seems fine doesn't mean anything. It just means no one's speculating because you don't know. You don't know until you look inside the.
He was asked about like what's your injury? What's the deal? And he's like, I wasn't coming out.
Yeah,
there's no way in hell Joe Burrow wasn't finishing that game. Like,
it felt like a Phillip Rivers situation when he tore his ACL. Because I'm going out there and whatever happens.
Don't say that because that's not. But I think that's
how I feel about it too.
If you're a Bengals fan,
I mean he's just tough, and you don't know.
That's the problem.
But like I told Brinson at the time, like that his ankle got twisted all sorts of sideways. I guarantee you, all he felt was his knee, the way that knee was bending.
No, I thought Stafford. It was Stafford's ankle and Burrow.
Okay, and this injury was also the other part why going empty set on that 4th and 1 was so stupid. You have your injured quarterback out there. If he gets any pressure at all, which Red's been doing literally every single play in the second half, Burrow's gonna have to move around. He's hurt. Like, what are you doing
on that play, Breech? According to some nerd somewhere, Aaron Donald pressured Joe Burrow 2.2 seconds after the snap. So I don't care if you're.
So Burrow should have got it written a bit faster.
No, that's 1001, 1002, and you get hit. I mean, what are you supposed to do if no one's open? I don't blame him. I don't disagree.
Yeah,
with
and there's an image going around of like Jalen Ramsey falling and Jamar Chase, but that image is from like a split second after the ball was already thrown. So like, rewind the ball into his hand, and it's not. That's not what Burrow's seeing. He's
clear cut.
Yeah, right.
I don't. And also, he could have. He was falling down.
If Joe Burrow could have seen the wide open receiver down the field, he would have thrown it there. Like,
right. And if he wasn't being pressured in 2.2 seconds, he would have thrown it there.
There's the whole meme of F it, I'm just going to throw it up down to Jamar down the field.
Right. Like when I was like 10, 11 years old, I used to wonder like if you just took a drop back and threw the ball one step after your drop back and just, sort of an anticipation
and just throw it up.
Eventually the route will run underneath it. But I mean, that's not how football works. I mean, people are looking at you. There's pressure. You can make anything a timing right, I suppose, but I mean, Joe Burrow was under pressure, and it was playing on one leg, so I don't fault him at all.
We mentioned Cooper Kupp's fantastic season. Stafford just the 4th QB in NFL history.
Will you stop it.
To throw for 6,000 yards in regular season and postseason combined. I mean, that's a huge number.
Worth noting, 2,000 of those yards came via the 19 interceptions.
The other 3 quarterbacks to do it, Peyton Manning lost the Super Bowl in 2013. Drew Brees did it in 2011.
What is that?
And Dan Marino did it in 1984.
I'm watching the I went to get a clip of it because I wanted to hear Collinsworth and Michaels because they were like way more worried about it than I thought. They weren't like, all right, let's see what Joe. When Stafford's holding his thing, they're like, oh, Stafford's hurt and he's limping a little bit. I saw that limp, Al. But like the clip I went to, it's the Super Bowl on ESPN, and it's like Steve Levy and.
I'm sorry, would they do the radio call or something?
I don't know, but it's really weird. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know the ESPN angle, but it felt like Joe Burrow was stuck in that position for like a half second longer than he probably wanted to be. But we don't know. It was his good knee, if that's any consolation.
His girlfriend was melting down.
His mom was like, you can see read her lips. Her mom said he's okay, and the girlfriend was understandably melting down. But I'm sure the mom understands the toughness of her son. Although he like we saw Matthew Stafford sort of casually limp off, if you can do that. Joe Burrow looked like he just got hit by a truck on the left side of his body.
Yeah, and it did feel like part of it was, he just wasn't coming out of the game. I mean, I know he said that, but there was no chance he was coming out. I sort of tend to think that no news is bad news, but
no, I just explained it to you why it's not bad news necessarily. They're flying back.
I feel like they don't want to.
It doesn't matter if we
pile it on for Bengals fans, basically. Like, hey, I know we lost the Super Bowl. The good news is we still got a great young quarterback. Unfortunately,
He'll be rehabbing
I
with
can't
Odell
imagine
Beckham.
the meltdown will be in Cincinnati if there's something
Because like if it were the ACL,
substantially wrong.
remember, he tore his ACL in like November, right, or October last year.
Yep,
November, I
and,
believe.
And it was not easy to be back.
Look, it's the same thing with Odell. If you're not coming back week 1 if you have a serious injury.
Yeah, I mean,
right now,
like the only, and I'm this is not me trying to do bingo because Wilson brought it
then
up.
don't even say it.
But like the only guy to do it is Rivers. He played with a torn ACL
In January. He had a full month extra recovery time.
He was back for
And Philip Rivers came back. He came back in 5 months, which is
you're playing in training camp where you're not being.
He was back in mini camp. Excuse me. He didn't miss a single snap of
It was a 5-month thing for him, which is
it's insane.
It helps when you run a 8-minute 40. He's not, he ain't Jerry Rice out there, so that helps. But still, the fact that they did it, and I'll give Phil Rivers credit. Most of that stuff, you're physically healthy. It's all mental. Do you trust your leg? And I think that's where Joe Burrow was early on. And he actually said that I think in preseason breach, maybe even over the summer, he wasn't sure if he was there mentally yet to trust his knee. And he got to it by the end. Obviously, he was running all over the place in the playoffs in terms of scrambling, not just running for his life. And it'll just be another mental thing he'll have to overcome. So he could conceivably play in 7 or 8 months, but I think the concern will be more above the neck than below the neck.
And the good thing news, if it's minor, he doesn't have to do anything for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Just get 100% healthy and be ready to roll next season.
Implore the front office to sign and draft offensive linemen is all he needs.
All offensive linemen.
All right.
Do what the Chiefs did. Just complete overhaul.
Let's not end it on a sour, paranoid note. So I'll just ask this: was this the greatest NFL postseason?
Yes.
In the history of the sport? Because it sure feels like it.
Yes. See you
By
Friday.
the way, the wild card round was terrible. People were complaining about it nonstop. It's like,
why they add extra teams? This sucks. Blah, 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 blah. And that ended up being the greatest playoffs ever.
I like the wild card round. It was all good.
The Bengals, remember Bengals Raiders was marred by what's his face?
It wasn't marred by it. It was the referee blew the whistle. It was a touchdown. It was a really good game.
And you know what? That was the first game.
It wasn't marred by that throw. It was marred by Jerome Boger being a freaking idiot and turning it into a disaster. I'm just saying that was one of the best games of that weekend.
The wild card round was saved by the fact that the Cowboys tried to run a QB draw with 14 seconds left in the game and no timeouts. And that's all anyone talked about for 6 straight days. It was like you forgot about that the other games, 4 of the other games sucked.
There were only 2 good games over wild card weekend. Right.
I would argue, I would push back. The other memorable moment for me was when the Steelers were up on the Chiefs 7-0 after TJ Watt scored a touchdown. That was the highlight of the weekend for me.
Yeah, but it felt like, oh my God, the Steelers are going to win this.
I knew how it was going to end. I just enjoyed the beginning.
I mean, divisional round was
bonkers.
If you said that was the greatest weekend of football, nobody even flinched at that comment. And then the conference championships were fantastic. And then the Super Bowl, it was, I think it's the top.
Who did the Rams beat? 49ers? Was that the conference championship?
Right. Yeah. The 49ers were up 17-7 in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Yeah. And the Bengals were down.
That was the first time since I think 97 or 98 that both teams in the conference title game were trailing by double digits.
You say Jaquaski Tart saved my season?
Yeah.
It cost me $3,500.
Yeah, but your Stafford Hall of Fame argument's still alive.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Brinson, do you want to have your pride or your money, man? Which one?
Oh, speaking of my money, guess what I won?
Oh, we have to send you money.
New hair plugs.
Pay up.
We get it.
Oh, right.
$33.
33 a piece. Venmo at Will Brinson is my Venmo.
Do you want me to take it off my tattoo, or do you want me to Venmo and you'll Venmo it back?
I'll Venmo back. You Venmo.
Okay. Fair enough.
We got to settle our debts. A podcaster always pays his debts.
C-Rad was trying in the comments trying to figure out where to pay from. No, you're covered, C-Rad.
Yeah, C-Rad, we were covering your. You were going to get 100 if you won. We only get 66.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And man,
that was it's fitting though. That was a Ramsey comeback because you were getting smoked, and then you somehow pulled it out.
And this is also the most Brinson thing ever because he can brag about the fact that he won and he made the right pick, even though the Rams were living like on the edge.
All right, Breech, remind us next August we'll do the draft and we'll do it again
at the beginning of the season,
and we'll do it again at week 9, well, or whatever halfway point. We'll redraft and we'll double up on the 33 each round.
By the way, here's a quote from Sean McVay. He said he's talking to Albert Breer, talking about Raheem Morris, one of the best coaches, best leaders I know, blah, blah, blah. Then it was on Stafford. Everything. He's meant so much to me, to our team. There's a belief. He's maybe a better coach. He's elevated everyone around him. I think he solidified himself tonight as a Hall of Famer.
What's he supposed to say?
Oh, what a big jam. Wallace took it in his hands and said, up and away.
As long as we put Richard Sherman in the Duncan on Brinson Hall of Fame for his response to you, then I'm.
I
okay
thought
with it.
I thought Sherman was being
You got mossed. I couldn't think of the word.
what? Do you really
You
think
got
so?
mossed. No, I don't care. I read like two things. I was like, I'm not gonna.
Sherman was like, he's like, how many Pro Bowls does he have? It's like, what are you talking about? He's like, how many All Pros does he have? It's like Big Ben doesn't have an All Pro. What are you doing here, pal?
He's not a Hall of Famer.
Who? Big Ben?
Your boy.
Stafford's getting in.
I think that Sherman's other argument was that Matthew Stafford's never really been considered the best at his position in any year that he's ever played.
Which is Prescott. Prescott said he's never been top 5 in any year.
That's it. I mean, if you go by
and Brady Quinn agreed with that.
Okay.
B-Mac's got your back though, and I think Breech does half the time. It depends on what day.
And again, like I don't think it matters because if he plays 4 more years and racks up 17,000 more passing yards, and I mean, threw 41 passing touchdowns this year. Like his numbers and the Super Bowl are just going to be by the
17
time
interceptions.
By the time we get 5 years past his career, and people sit down and be like, okay, let's look at this guy's like resume. It's just going to be a no-brainer. So I
was laughing, by the way. We'll get out on this. I was like, that corner of my eye had HQ on there doing Champions League coverage, which starts on Tuesday, goes into Wednesday. And I said, why is Stephen A on set in Stanford? And I looked over. I said, oh, it's Luis Miguel Echegaray, who's has a.
Does he look like Stephen A?
He's just very tanned, and when you look out of your corner of your eye, I said, oh, that's Stephen A. That's hilarious.
Okay, let's get out of here on that. Let's go watch some Champions League.
I don't ever have to talk about the Super Bowl again, ever, right? I can repress the memory and put it behind me, and we're done.
Nope.
And okay, that is the final stage of grief.
Yeah, that is actually the first stage of grief. That's called denial. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow with a Brady Quinn football show. Of course, our full Super Bowl recap pod is in the feed. We will continue to deliver daily NFL audio content throughout the offseason. It's fun now. Free agency, the draft will be a blast. The combine, all that stuff. Got a long way till June before we have to really start sweating.
Tune in on Friday, HQ. We're all doing a Pick Six show. Breaking news.
I will not be there.
Of course.
Nor will I.
I'm going to the beach. Bye.
All right, me easy, bud.
Tune in Friday. Wilson will be on HQ. For Wilson and Breech, I'm Brinson. See you guys later.